more years. But pretty much this growth has been like, if you look at it, the companies like Apple, Samsung, and Sony was predominantly dominated in for last like maybe 2-3 years back. And then later, like you have seen like some of the companies like Macromax, Carbon, Cellcom, and like Lava, some of the white label companies, and they dominated the market. And recently, right, last 1 year, we see a lot of Chinese companies like Xiaomi or OnePlus or Vivo, Oppo, some of the names I cannot even pronounce. And these guys are pretty much dominating the market. And you see recently, right, all these companies are trying to make use of the Make in India policy, and they're trying to penetrate into India, and you see a lot of campaigns from all these guys. But all the time, right, I question myself, and I always like feel myself, right. You see, like across the globe, we didn't see a single brand comes from India in top 100 companies. If you look at top 100 companies or 100 brands, you don't see a single company from India actually. And all the Chinese players or any player try to come to India and try to like kind of take the market share. It's not for like they love us. And it's pretty much for the marketing opportunity what they have, they see it in India. And if you look at right, the top like 20 companies, tech companies across the globe, you go and look at it, and the top 10 to 15 employees are from Indians. So that means we are not lack of the technology or the talent, and we are not lack of the market opportunities in India. And we pretty much leave it to the others to come and enjoy this smartphone growth or whatever the growth is going to happen. So I leave it like maybe the smartphone is over, but like now, like I see that right after the smartphone, what is next in India? And I know like everybody talks about today, like there's a buzzword in the startup, right? It's like IoT. So IoT is like Internet of Things, and at SmartTron we call Internet of Trons. Like there's a new wave like of IoT is going to come, and if you look at the industry also, right, every 5 to 7 years you see a new wave, and these new waves are going to be order of magnitude in terms of volume or revenues. If you start with the PC era, where you will have only like maybe hundreds of million devices like units per year, but once you move to the smartphones has been created like billions of opportunities. Like you see like transport to the smartphones today, like 2 to 3 billion phones per year. Then this IoT wave is going to bring like 20 to 30 billion devices opportunity into the country. And what is this IoT, right? Everybody talks about it. It's a simple, right? Connecting the various devices and analyzing at the background. There's a lot of artificial intelligence. There is a machine learning. And the background, right, each devices will talk to each other and start providing the personalized solutions and the personal choices for us. And very soon you see like a lot of our devices would be like the smartphone in your house, in your pocket is going to tell you when to leave to office. It's already happening. And it's going to tell you one of the bulb in your house is went bad. You better replace it. Or like I'm going to make a order for you from Amazon or a Flipkart or whatever it is. And these devices, these IoT systems are going to tell you, okay, there's a gas cylinder, like it's coming to 20%, I'm going to make an order for you. So if you look at into that kind of opportunity, like you look at right, the smart watches, bands, fitness, health bands, and these bands are going to kind of connect us to start like monitoring our health and everything, connect us to the doctors 24/7 and started providing the timely diagnosis. So if once you think about this IoT and the kind of opportunities is like, it is a tremendous opportunity for this country to come and play in this actually. So very soon we have been seeing like the drones and autonomous self-drive cars. Then all the time I tell people, right, India always we skip one of the technology waves and go on to the next time. Whenever I see the self-drive cars, I see that India may skip the self-drive cars and we may go and pick it up on the flying cars, because we always know that we have a very challenging the infrastructure issues. So keeping this as a founding vision, like I moved from US and said, why can't we create a true global brand from India? Why can't we become one of the top 10 or top 20 companies? Why can't we build it? We have a talent, we have a market opportunity. That's where like the SmartRun founding vision. So pretty much the SmartRun founding vision was to create a IoT brand from India to India and a global actually. So working on whatever I've been talking about it. So if you see that, like you can look at the SmartRun install, and we have launched a T-phone and a T-book. That's the first one of the IoT enabled devices where you have a interconnection started happening, and there is like a integrated cloud arcade services. So, and basically the one thing I suggest to a lot of the audience here, like startup guys, right? There's a tremendous opportunity, and there is a new wave will come and tell you there is a huge opportunity to innovation in the hardware side. So this is the area where, like, this is the era where we are in every field, like from the apps to hardware to cloud to enterprise to home to everywhere there is opportunity of making things to be autonomous and self-learning and self-healing. There's a very interesting things going to happen to the most of these devices. There is a self-healing, like how the human, like a lot of times most of our diseases, your human body start correcting by itself. Even though very soon you see the devices started correcting themselves actually. So pretty much SmartRun has been working on all these technologies for last 2 years, and we filed more than 60 patents. And we are ready to here to challenge some of the global brands and go to the global. And you all guys know it, there's a Mr. Sachin Tendulkar is a investor and the brand ambassador in our company. So when I met him first time, he asked me, if you can tell me if an Indian brand can be being carried by American by 2020, if you can promise me, I'll be part of, I can invest or I can be part of your story. So my promise to him was, don't wait, we don't have to wait till 2020, I can make it happen by 2017. So that's kind of a vision, that kind of strength, that kind of the thinking we need to have it to really challenge the global brands. So I leave it here for your thoughts. If you have any questions, I am willing to answer. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience side? Any backbenchers? Time to ask right questions.
Thank you all.
There's a question here.
Good morning. My question to you is, I'm not a techie, I'm a more or less policy guy. So while you started the company and these are doing business, so there are a couple of issues related with the policy framework. So in your eyes, what were the challenges in the policy level?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a very good question. So I think when we want to start the SmartRun as a company from India, a lot of suggestions to have a holding company in Singapore or like Mauritius or some other place, right? Ireland or US. There's like strong suggestion, right? Don't have the parent entity in India. Yeah, everybody knows that. Like one thing, first thing I just told our auditors or like whatever, right? The guy said, I want to give a 15% stock options to the employees. They said, are you mad? You cannot have, your policies doesn't allow you. I said, man, today any startup is like it's like a human resources. Whatever the employees are building the companies, not the only founders, right? So there are a lot of challenges. But even though like the way I felt was like a lot of, we know it's some of the brands, right? They still like their head office are in Singapore or some other place. But I tell people, right, it's our country. Whatever the policies, whatever it is, let's face it as a challenge. Let's start cleaning up. I agree with you. There are so many challenges, but I have taken a path to just challenge it and start correcting it or start fighting on the policies than like giving up and going and start a company in Singapore and have India as like cost center or a subsidiary. So I rather, like to the young guys, right, I tell that this is my suggestion is, let's challenge the policies and start doing what you think is right, and when it comes, we deal it. Some of the options, some of the policies, we challenged it. I went and even talked to the ROC and said, this act is not irrelevant. If it comes to the stage, I'll go and fight it, but I'm going to do it as it is. So we don't have to give up on it. There are challenges, but my suggestion is to start fighting on the challenges. But don't give up and go move out of the country.
Thank you.
Hi. With more of IoT devices, don't you think humans are becoming lazy?
No. So I think a lot of times, right, this is a discussion, I always have it at our office, our colleagues, our friends and family, right? These IoT devices, like, it's going to make the human race to be leading in a better life and more productivity, more efficiency, more secure, more safety. See, it's like today, right, what is happening? All our lives, like you may have today, right, a lot of people still, we are surrounded by good technology. All we are like interacting with the devices. Today you have a laptop, you have a phone, you have a refrigerator, you have AC, you may have your own cloud. A lot of these devices are around you. But today like most of your time is going to manage these devices. Suppose, for example, like take example of your AC is not working. Your bulb went bad at home. Why you need to care about, right? So the mission has to care about mission. But then what will happen, right? Very soon, I always tell, yesterday also I was having the same chat. Somebody was asking me the same. I say that very soon you realize you will have a quality time. That quality time today, right? Like most of Indians, like if you are busy, you cannot innovate. The simple thing, right? If you are like, have some time, you can think, you can innovate. Today our human life is we are so busy with dealing with the devices and work, right? But this IoT is going to improve your efficiency and productivity. Very soon you started seeing that there is a lot of time which you have it. Lot of trivial things which you are taking care by yourself is going to be taken over by the missions. Then you will have a time. This time you can spend with your family, or you can start thinking, or you can start innovating. So I exactly take it the other way. It's not a lazy, but generally, right, I always tell people, if you are lazy, you can innovate more. So I always tell, somebody is like at our office, somebody is like doing a scripting or like a manual testing. I say that hire a lazy guy for the testing, and the guy immediately realized, man, I cannot do this manually every day. I rather write a script and let the machine do it. I go and do something else. That's my elaborated answer for it. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
I am Siddhartha Jain. Now I have just heard your speech. In the speech you have mentioned as healing part.
Pardon?
Healing of the...
Yeah, the devices healing.
That is what I have heard for the first time. I wanted you to elaborate it on that.
See, it's simple, right? If you look at some of our Tron products, we pretty much call in-house as a Tron. Look at like T-Phone or T-Book. We have a platform called the Care as a platform, T-Care as a platform. Today, a lot of times, right, you call people and call to the call center and say that my camera is not working, my Bluetooth is not working, my maybe wireless is not working, AC is maybe, as soon as you go home, you started touching and seeing that, oh, ACs may not be working right? Because like the human has always have a perceptions. But you will have the IoT kind of system where it actually knows, it has a lot more sensors around it. This guy can like get come to know the device is not doing well, and it can go to the cloud or it get to some other place and get the solution for you. If a Bluetooth is not working, you have to really reinstall the whole firmware, right? So the device knows it, okay, Bluetooth is not working, maybe I can have a small diagnose software inside the phone, and it can kick in every night 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. It runs through your device, and you find it's okay, some of these things are not working. I can actually go to the cloud, and I can have the cloud-based whole like AI-based the care center, and the device will start getting the things from there and just self-diagnose and self-fixes. That's what I call it as a self-healing. So, and we have been working on it, and we filed several patents in that area.
So I have two questions. One is, what is your IoT roadmap? And what is the framework you are providing for the IoT devices?
Right, good question. So the IoT roadmap, we plan to introduce our first IoT hub, which is like, I can proudly say people, right, it is going to be much superior than whatever you have seen with the Amazon Echo or a Google On Home or a Apple HomeKit. And that device is, we are planning to launch it by end of this year. And from there, every year you will have versions of IoT hub. And the other interesting thing, we want to work with a lot of startups and ecosystem. Should I look at, right, some of the companies? Okay. So some of the companies, like if you look at like Samsung or Google or Apple, right, the biggest challenge with IoT, nobody can alone own the space. If somebody is like dreaming of alone owning the space, you're not going to really kind of create that the accelerated growth. Really, the IoT need that exponential growth in the whole scenario. So the IoT, we are coming up with our own framework with some of the open standards, and we are going to open this IoT framework to all the crowd actually. Then we are expecting the cloud, whatever it is, right, the startups to start innovating the new devices. So one other example I always give it to the people, everybody, right, the dream company would be Apple, right? So a lot of times we dream about Apple and we talk about Apple. About like a lot of people today, we talk about the devices or whatever the ecosystem they have created. But for me, whatever the Steve Jobs has given a gift to the world as an app store. Well, for me, like if you have to rate what is the greatest innovation in the last 10, 15 years, with no shame, I say that it's the app store. Because I always say that era before app store and after app store. So before app store, you have only 5-6 companies started making the products like Microsoft, Oracle, SAP, or there are 5-6 companies. But the Steve Jobs has given a gift of App Store to the cloud, and every corner of the world started doing their companies. The App Store has been launched in a month or year. You saw like 10,000 companies has been registered just to work on the apps. And these 10,000 and million companies, they are like more than like thousands of companies became recorded revenues of $1 million. And you look at it today, Uber or Ola, all these companies are because of the App Store concept. So we want to exactly get the concept into the hardware actually. Because just like 10 years, it's once again the innovation in the hardware. We have come to a stage of software innovation. Now there is a new wave in the hardware innovation. So yeah, like every year we will be start deploying our IoT hub, and there is a platform also comes in. After Apple will be one of the first guys where we will be deployed. We will be talking about a device story, and there is a platform story. So the platform will be launched every like March. Then we'll ask crowd to start work on the devices. Thank you.
So good morning. The audience who are having the mic, please speak louder. Okay. Good morning. So my question is, by 2017, you're planning to go global, right? So what are the main milestones that you guys have? Like, is it improving software, or is it by launching more apps, or what exactly is the plan?
So it's more than launching apps, right? We have Tronix as a platform. And there is see, if you look at, right, any like a story, right? So like if you look at like Apple as an example or Google as an example, they created the Android, they created a Gmail, they have some of the hooks, right? So similarly, like at SmartRun also, we are working on the cloud or care or a services or a store. Even the store is going to the AI-based store. Once you have it, then we go and open up to the crowd actually. Then the crowd can start pushing some of their services through our platforms. So we don't have to like say that I will do like 100 apps and put it. We do the basic, that infrastructure or the basic, the whole Tronix platform, and we will invite the partners to be part of that story. And of course the devices also, we don't want to innovate like if you look at, right, we just launched only one phone. In this competition, in this phone, like in this like kind of a market, I'm challenging, I'm going to do one phone per year, and this is a one model. It's like 4 GB, 64 GB. We don't want to confuse the user. Like phone, you have one phone, you have a laptop, you have one laptop. In the smartwatch, you have one smartwatch, you have IoT hub. These are the devices we want to take it to across the globe. And the same time, there's a Tronix is a platform that can be touch every like startup company in the world actually. So we already started working with the 15-20 startups. Being a startup, we started working with the 15-20 startups across the globe.
Hello.
That's a good question. One
Yeah,
second.
I have a question.
Let me answer his question.
Yeah.
So I'm a graduate from IIT Kharagpur, and I've been with the startups. Somebody was telling, I was just telling somebody, this is my 5th startup, and the startup which we are about to exit in a silicon space. So I think in a week or two we'll be announcing one of the biggest exit in the world. That company is called Soft Missions. I'm the managing director and the global VP for that company. So I was one of the founding members of that company. So there we build the, like today, right, is nobody have a guts to challenge the ARM and Intel in terms of processor, right? So today it's a processor means either ARM or a Intel x86. So we have created our own processor, and that is like going to come and change the lives of the human life. Where we are going to give a, like a 4x battery or a performance and a similar performance, similar node or similar technologies. So I've been a technical guy, and I'm still try to be very technical and work with engineers. Thank you.
Yeah, what are the hardware challenges you are facing while connecting the various devices onto the IoT framework, like connecting a car? The car is not directly connected to any of the electronic devices where you can connect to a smartphone. What are the technical challenges and how you are dealing with those particular technical challenges? Be it an AC, be it a car, be it like a washing machine, which today are not smart devices which can give the data out to a outside network like an IoT cloud or anything. So how are you trying to solve that particular problem?
That's a good question. So like the other thing, right, the IoT is already like, maybe if you talk about home automation, there are already some of the solutions available, right? Like you look at, you have a smart lights and maybe smart switch, and a lot of things are available. See, one of the biggest challenge to the technology, see, whenever the new technologies comes, I always tell like even my team or whatever it is, right? It has to be plug and play. See, today, if you look at, right, it's simple. I don't know, some of you guys might have been in the industry for 2005, 2006, 2007, or till 2009 or 10. If you have to install a application, you have to call your IT admin. Right? It's simple, right? You have to call IT admin, the guy comes and install a software for you. But today, even your mom can install your WhatsApp by herself. Right? Just click in one click, it's over. See, today all this have been evolved because of the easy of operation. But at the same time, we have a huge challenge today. Like if you look at it, I don't think even myself can confidently say, I can install the printer by myself. I can install my router in like maybe in just 1 hour. If you buy a new router, you need to take a half day, sit at home and start installing it. If you buy a printer, most of the time I attempted, I cannot install it. I had to call my IT and he just run around for a whole day and install the printer for you. So that is a huge challenge for the connecting the IoT device to the centralized hub. So that's where, right, we have been working on a lot of these, one of the things we are working on, the configuration is one thing. And other thing, right, like today, like if you look at any data, whatever is happening on your phone or home or anything, it's actually everything is available on the internet. That's one of the threat is going to, we see it. But we would be one of the first guys who would be coining the technology called personal data analytics. Today everybody knows about big data analytics, but we would be doing a lot of things on the personal data analytics. So it's your data, your band, your health, your home. I should be able to come up with a solution or a choice based on you and your home, your family. I cannot take your data into the big data or big cloud and started doing the data and started monetizing it. Today everybody try to do it to monetize the data and start selling it. But the SmartRun takes exactly opposite way and try to come up with a closed loop solutions where we try to do a personal data analytics and we try to provide a personal choice or a timely solution for you actually. So there's a huge challenge. We have been working on a very interesting way of plug and play of hardware. Where today you buy a bulb and you can just get it from shop and you can put it. But once you have IoT bulb, it's not going to that easy. But how are you going to solve that problem, right? That's exactly the reason we started working on the artificial intelligent T-store, Tron store. The Tron store is going to take a lot of those things actually. So everything, right, you need to think like 3 years ahead and start working today. If you really want to challenge the Google or Apple or the Amazon kind of the people.
Hello.
That will be the last question.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. Are you in the energy space or discrete manufacturing with respect to IoT?
Pardon?
Energy space. I'm talking about energy generation from generation through transmission.
No, not really. But the way we have looked at the smart run as a roadmap, right? We want to address the consumer needs first. Then the next, like every year, we have one new thing started working on it. We'll be going into the enterprise, infrastructure, industrial, then the agriculture sectors over the period. But the energy space, as soon as you say that, it's very tempting topic for me. I always like the other guy, the newborn guy, right, Tesla. You look at the kind of innovation, the kind of thought process he's going to do it. Maybe one day, if I have more bandwidth, I'll be start working on something like a solar city. Right, that's extremely good concept of coming with the solar grids. You have your own energy cylinder. Like today we buy the gas cylinder. Very soon you see that every house will have there is electrical cylinders. So there's interesting thoughts behind our thought processes, but we need to see it. Right? The smart run is pretty much more into the device space and the platform and ecosystem space. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
A round of applause for the speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Can I request Mr. Naveen Kumar, Mr. Vivek to come and hand over a token of appreciation? Can I have Mr. Narsi Reddy on the stage to accept the token of appreciation? Please. A round of applause, please. Thank you, sir. Now we have another energetic speaker, Mr. Abhay Deshpande, founder and CEO of Madjack. 17 years of long journey in e-commerce sector, and acquisition of Madjack by Capillary is a success story worth knowing for all of us. Now let's hear the whole story from him himself. Can I request Mr. Abhay Deshpande to come onto the dais?
Good morning. It's really good to see such a nice crowd in Hyderabad for a startup event. So before I start my presentation, I would like to just understand how many of you have really started already, or the companies are already started and running. Can you just start?
Just give me a minute, he's just loading the presentation.
So how many of you have already running a startup? Can you raise hands? Quite a good number. How many of you have raised the VC money? So I have somebody from the first row, funny. How many got rejected by the VCs? Rejection is also looks like a less number here. Nobody has approached VCs yet? Is it? Right. So I will add VCs and angels. So how many of you got rejected by VCs and angels? Okay. So I'm going to share few learnings of my 17 years of journey in e-commerce and as an entrepreneur, and more going to talk about rejections and I think what I learned from the rejections which I got in the last 17 years. So I call my journey as like the rejections actually give me a lot of learning, and I talk about the power of rejections which I have got in last 17 years. So brief about me. I think one amongst you hail from a family which has never done business. My father was a government servant, a middle class family. MBA I learned from rejections which I got in last 17 years. I just did my engineering in computer science. What I did in last 18 years is just e-commerce. I really don't understand any other business. I started in 1998 and till today doing e-commerce. Earlier I used to do e-commerce directly, but now last 7-8 years we have started enabling people to do e-commerce. So what I understand is just e-commerce and e-commerce. A failed entrepreneur, failed in my first venture, which I started in 98, closed it in 2005-6. So one failure, and next is a success, which so-called success, what we call it as. Brief about my college. I did my engineering from a small college in Maharashtra. There is a college called HGGS College. It's a government college. So we used to have two labs, Lab A and Lab B. In I'm a computer science engineer. So, and there was a canteen, that's a C lab, which we used to call. So I used to spend 70% of my time in C lab, very few hours in the A and B lab practically. Learn more in the C lab than the actually A and B lab, frankly speaking, because I really learned how to build relationships, how to build contacts, how to build, but not much from the academic perspective. We used to have 45 marts, dress marts every year in engineering. So I was the best. I used to manage those marts very well so that every mark is utilized to get to the next year, right? You can use those 45 marks on different subject to get 40 and get passed. So actually that also gave me some learning that how to manage the limited funds which you have in your business. And in the final year, suddenly I got a good rank. I was the 8th ranker in the university, which was a surprise to many of our professors. So my journey started from Web 1.0, then the .com crash, and then the Web 2.0, what we call it today. So I started my first company in early 1998. The company used to be called as Malamal.com. It was a e-commerce B2C portal. It started from Hyderabad. I think might be amongst first few e-commerce companies in this country. People were not even aware about the internet those days. Getting the internet connection used to be like 3,000 rupees for 100 hours and 3 months waiting period and all that stuff. So that is the period we started this company. The business model was wonderful on the Excel sheet. We prepared a business model. I remember I still have that business model. Our GME was supposed to be almost $1 billion in 2002 itself. So we started in 1998, and I thank Microsoft for creating such a wonderful tool. This is very helpful for the entrepreneurs to really show the big dream to the investors, as well as to feel happy inside also that we're working on such a large business. So we created a business plan in 98. I went to the investors, and we could get some funding there, but the business plan, as per the plan, it was supposed to be $1 billion business by 2002, but whole India's e-commerce was not even 100 million that time by 2002, 2003. But we got some angel funding, we raised some first round of funding in this company. But then again 2000, we did a lot of innovation disruptions during that period because we had limited funds, 1 crore rupee funding, the first angel funding, and then some more money came in. But by the time we did some Rakhi and some innovations in the Indian context, which actually gave us a really good connect with the consumers. But the real market was not ready. If you ask me, 98, 99, the India was not ready for e-commerce. Credit card penetration was almost zero. Logistic companies were not ready for e-commerce. So we were pretty 8 to 10 years ahead of the time. Frankly, we should have started Malamal in 2004 or 2005 that we started in 1998. But still, as an entrepreneur, you feel that something might happen. But then 2000, again, the .com burst happened, and that was a tough period for us. The few learnings as entrepreneurs in my first venture, which I ran from Malamal from 1998 to 2005, the end result was we couldn't become Malamal from the monetary perspective. Malamal nahi bane, but from the knowledge, from the e-commerce understanding point of view, we really learned a lot. So I say we became Malamal from the e-commerce knowledge perspective, not from the monetary perspective. Few learnings which I got from my first ventures, first 8 years. You need to be at the right place at the right time. So as I said, I started almost 8 to 9 years ahead of the time. That was not the perfect time to start an e-commerce company. Hire a right talent. That was another big learning I had, because all my hiring in my first venture was either my friends, my relatives, my cousins, 25% at least. And I thought I will build a world-class company, a global company on base of these people. But then I realized that until unless you have a right talent, a talent which can really understand your vision and work with you, you cannot build a large-scale company with this kind of talent. So you need to really hire a right talent. Even if you don't hire 10 people, if you have a requirement of 10, hire 4, but hire right talent. starting team, the founding team is a very, very important factor. And unfortunately, in my first company, I was the single man army. I started it and I didn't have a very strong founding team. So I learned that if you really wanted to make it big, you need to have a good co-founders, good team around you to really build it large. You can't, alone building it will be not that easy. This is my team of Martjet, so we'll talk about them. So this is the founding team which we started Martjet together. Learn to say no, that is another thing which, so we had, when I started Malamal in we had one of the company from Bombay come in and offering us a very good exit offer, like it was almost a $4 million, 25 crore rupees offer to buy our company. But we said no to that. And there were some other reasons behind it because the intent of the buyer were not really clear and the company was very small, like it was 35 lakhs GMV and we got an offer of 25 crores. And after that, I remember no one gave us even a 50 lakh rupees offer for next 7 years. So sometimes we used to feel that, what did we take the right decision or not? But then, if you look at now, I feel that if we would have sold that, this story would not have got created. So, and that time we felt that that was not the right partner for us to sell. So we took a decision. So we need to really learn to say no. The another learning that you need to really manage the investor expectations with your conviction. So during the Malamal days, I remember many of my investors used to say, Abhay, let's open offline stores. Let's open a store in Bombay, let's open a store in Delhi, and that might scale. And with the online anyway, people are not buying yet. But and we'll fund you more. But I really felt that if I am not made for the retail business at the brick and mortar space, I really want to build something which is scalable. So we said no, there are some we had where people were ready to invest if we would have gone offline, but we were not comfortable, so we actually said no and didn't take that money from them. So it really managed the future investors or existing investors' expectations with your conviction. So those 7 years of 98 to 2005 was the early days of e-commerce, and we really learned a lot how exactly the whole consumer behavior on the digital space is happening, how consumers are buying. Based on those learnings, then 2005, 2006 was a period where we started thinking that, can we build a platform? Because by then, a lot of these retailers, brands like Polarity, Karachi's, these guys started talking to us and they were started thinking of having their own store. So we realized that there might be, and that is a period where in the next 10 years, we are going to see a real e-commerce boom in this country. In that scenario, knowing the Indian retailers or Indian brands who are not tech savvy, who don't understand technology, who feel that technology is not for them, we build something. And that is where the whole idea of Martjet came in. And the Martjet as a company was formed in 2007. So I think we pivoted from a consumer business to a B2B business, a software business in 2007. So we closed Martjet, in fact, completely closed and started a new company in 2007. This was again a journey with a small office in Krishna Plaza, Khairatabad. We still have that office. We kept that office with us. It's a 400 square feet office with three people team, because we had 60 people team in Malamal, but subsequently we had to let go most of them because we were not in a position to really take care of them. An old scooter and 3.5 crores liability personally on me and the company. That's where we started. And as I said, I'm a son of a government servant, so we never had any financial liberty to really pay off that from our own earnings. So we just said, let us continue. And that's on that basis, this company was formed. And a dream to really build a large software/SaaS business from this country. So just to give you an idea about what we built and what Martjet is. So Martjet is an e-commerce platform, and it has been the largest e-commerce platform from India, Middle East and Southeast Asia. I can say India and Middle East with confidence because these are the two places where we have a large customer base. Around 175 people when we exited, when we got acquired last year, we were a 175 people team. Around 2,000 brands used our service platform. 250 enterprise customers. We raised down 7 million, so we'll talk about it. So a couple of clients, if you look at global clients like Walmart, Future Group, Pizza Hut, all these guys use our technology and platform from India, from MartJet. So MartJet was when we started in 2007, I think, again, the SaaS was an unknown word. So when we started in 1998, Malamal.com, e-commerce was the unknown word. When we started MartJet, again, the SaaS was not known. Most of us knows that SaaS B2B Bahuti wala SaaS. So nobody knew about the real software as a service business. So we started it. It was not easy when we used to go to the retailers and used to tell them, sir, we are providing you a platform where you can create your online store and you have to pay us 5,000 rupees per month. The reaction used to be that, why should I pay you 5,000 rupees per month? Right? First of all, in this country where the Microsoft CD is available for 100 rupees, people don't feel for paying for the software. So it was very tough convincing people for SaaS, monthly model, and very, very difficult. So being the first SaaS player almost in the country, we went through a lot of pains that telling them, a lot of people we met, they said, take this 1 lakh rupees, no monthly, I don't understand this. I remember one of the initial customer from Hyderabad, I will share that story. Somebody from Malakpet, who signed up with us, and our sales guy went and sold a package to him, some 8,000 rupees per month. He gave the check of 24,000 rupees, and he came back, signed up, the form is filled. And next day morning, we found his clerk or office boy in our office. They said, sir, I'm here because I wanted to collect a source code. They said, please give me a CD. My boss has asked me to go and collect a source code because he has bought the software. I said, about 24,000 rupees, you want the whole source, 8,000 rupees per month. So that was the understanding. One of the client from Delhi who was doing good business with us online, one fine day we found that his store was under maintenance. He put a board on the website that under maintenance or something. So our guys, customer support guys, got what happened. So they called him. So the guy said, boss, he's from Delhi, so he used to have an offline store and online store. They said, I'm on vacations for 3 days. I'm in Mussoorie. So I closed my offline store and I closed my online store also. So that was the understanding of the retail when we started MartJet. And people were like, they used to sign up, but then monthly when they used to get invoice of 5,000 rupees, they said, why am I paying you? Because until you are not providing me any service, your software is already ready, why are you charging us? That was the fundamental question. Then we realized that India is not the country for software as a service, it's a country for software and a service. So people understand software and a service, they don't understand purely software as a service. So we changed the model subsequently, looking at those learnings which we had. This is another thing which was the toughest in our journey. So starting in 2007, we thought we'll build a product, we'll go to the VCs. VCs will give us a grand welcome, they will give us the term sheet, like all the glorified things which are happening in the market by then. And we'll raise 5-10 millions easily and the business will grow pretty fast. But to our surprise, we didn't get any VC investment in the whole of our journey. We ended up raising $7 million for this company. That was a big amount from, if we look at from the angel perspective. And that money was raised from 75 investors. So I had 75 plus investors on my cap table, which many people were like surprised that how can you manage 75 investors. And all the 75 investors invested in those 8 years of the journey. So the company started in May 2007, got acquired in September. It's a 100-month journey. So in 100 months, we have 75 investors plus 15 already exited during the journey. So 90 investors. So almost one investor a month. So it was like people worked on daily wages. So we were using the monthly funding. So let go and raise some money. Because being a product company, if you want to build a product company, it takes 8 years to 9 years for the SaaS business to become profitable and scalable. At a scale, you can't build a SaaS business with profitability positioning of 3 to 4 years. You have to keep on investing on the product. You have to keep on investing on the manpower. You have to keep on innovating. Then only the business can. And that it needs a lot of money. So 7 million is the money raised from 75 investors. My job, I don't remember after 2009, I really did any other work than just raising money. Thankfully, my founding team was very strong, so I had a very good team. So they could take care of the business, but I was completely focusing on fundraise, go meet investors, I had from 5 lakh rupees to 12 crores, there were different guys. All 42 crore came in 135 tranches. So in 100 months, so almost like every month you have one check coming from the investors. The problem there was that we never had money to plan for more than 3 months. If today I'm sitting and planning a business plan, I never had money more than 90 days. There was a scenario twice or thrice in 9 years where I had money for 3 months. Otherwise, it was every month you have to really manage at the month end salaries and all that stuff. It was tough. Got rejected by the VCs 100 plus times. One VC rejecting 3-4 times. So overall 50 unique VCs. I met every VC in the country, from Sequoia Capital, from Warburg, from everyone, you name it. They know me personally. There was a situation that they became friends. They started sending me the e-commerce business leads which they used to get and take my feedback on that. Yeah, bhai, what do you think about this business? I said, you are not investing in my business and you are taking feedback on other business from me. So I have gone through that. Every time they went, so we started, we were 5 lakh rupees a month. We went to them, sir, good, Abhay, a wonderful team, but we will like to see that can you go to 20 lakh rupees a month? I said, okay. So then we worked hard for a year or so. We went to 20 lakh rupees. Again went to them. Good, you have done a good job, but let's keep in touch. We have to see that can it be a 50 lakh rupees a month business. So that continued. Even by the time we reached 2 crore rupees a month, we were hearing the same thing. Can you reach $1 million that time? So I think somehow when we start looking at it, why we got rejected, there can be multiple reasons. One of them, I can easily say it was a Hyderabad-based company, and that time the Hyderabad ecosystem was not really great about the startup. And VCs did not have an office in Hyderabad, so that I can say that. The other thing was, we didn't have this tick mark of IIT co-founders, IIM co-founders. We were all passed out from some college in Maharashtra, from a small village, so we didn't have that glamour. Or third thing, what we were not able to impress them, although the numbers were good, but still we were not able to impress them somehow. But the end result is that we got rejected 100 plus times from 50 unique VCs. We got even, that was one of the largest setback for us, that one of the largest global company wanted to acquire us in 2011. And we went through a process, 9 months, and even 100 people from US traveled to India. Everything was done, our offer letters were given. And just 15 days before the transactions, you get an update from it that the transaction is called off. That was one of the biggest rejection because we were completely prepared for it. Our investors started counting money, that my top employees started looking at villas and apartments in Hyderabad. And suddenly you came to know that the deal is not happening. And that was the biggest one because by then we had just 20 lakh rupees in the account and the rejection has already happened. And when you go to the market and talk to the existing investor also, because you are a rejected material suddenly, getting rejection from VC is different, but getting rejection in the acquisition is completely different. So that was another learning, that when we went after the deal to talk to the people, we realized that they're starting looking towards it, that there is something wrong in this company. Why is this deal has not gone through? Although it was a confidential deal, nobody knew about it, but generally people come to know about there is something happening here. So I think that was another big rejection and a setback which we saw in our journey. So as I said, initially our focus was SMBs, so 5,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees per month. On getting the customers, 100 customers a month, but there will be 70 which will not be paying and going out of the system every month. So we will not really grow. So we pivoted again. That was another pivot from B2C to SMB platform and SMB to enterprise platform. So that pivoting we do, we said that we need to really build our product for enterprises who really has a money vision to really make big in the e-commerce space, omni-channel space. And that we did after 2012, that after that rejection from the acquisition, we really changed our gears and made a more enterprise platform. I think that was the turning point, and that all this thing was possible because of this team, because I think this is the biggest pillar of our success. But we never had big money, we never had big backings, we were all there was no one to back us, but still we could survive, gone through those hiccups and create a platform or a successful company. It's just because of this 150, 175 people. And I think, as I said, the first venture, the learning which I had, this time I made sure that I hire the right talent. So we had people from IIT, we had people from IIM, we have Google, Facebook, people left their jobs, joined us at a 1/3 salary, worked with us for 5 years, 6 years, without increments, without much of the financial benefits, and they stick together even in the bad period. That was the most important period. Even after that rejection from the acquisition, we lost 2 senior guys out of 20. That was the big thing, because otherwise in that kind of scenario all your top management start getting shaky and leaves you. So this is the team. I think I give the credit of my successes, 8 out of 10 goes to this team, because I just started. After that, for last 9 years I was just doing the fundraise and the corporate development of acquisitions and merger. I didn't really do any active contribution in the business except starting this company as a founder. What made us stay together, the team, was a hope of building something valuable, building something great where our customers are happy, our investors are happy. So that hope of building something kept us together. Positive energy, I think that was the biggest strength of Martjack team. Even in the bad times, worst times, we could stay together just because of the positive energy of the overall team and the top management. And the trust. That was, I think, the biggest factor in our journey and our success story, because the kind of trust we had on each other, employee, the co-founders, even the investors. So just to share with you, all these 7 millions which I raised, there was not a single shareholder agreement. So almost 75 investors invested money in my company without signing a shareholder agreement. We know if somebody, you don't use a 5 lakh rupees loan or 10 lakh rupees loan, they make sure that all your properties and all your promissory notes, post-dated checks are taken. Although it was equity investment, it was a blind trust. And one person can trust. We saw that 75 people trusting us. And then apart from the 7 million, we had around 14-15 crores loan on the company, which I took personally. That loan also was given by people in Hyderabad and a couple of my friends. Was again, but they knew that I don't have any backing, I don't have any of properties where I can repay them. But that trust is something which made us stay together, our investors really to support us. So I think that was the most important factor. Then we stayed fast after 2012. That was a real growth. We had 50, 100 enterprise customers. We reached to a $5-6 million annual run rate kind of revenue, $5 million. And I think that was a 2012, 2015, we almost become profitable. We actually really started, we realized that there's nobody is going to fund us. That was a clear-cut understanding that we are not going to get funded. Let us build our own business, let's make it profitable. And that focus actually helped us further. And last year, September, our acquisition happened. So the Capillary, Singapore-based CRM company, they acquired us. So I treat it as a marriage, because generally when you get acquired, it's like a marriage. So it was 8 months negotiation and all that stuff, but then the deal went through on September. As I said, this Capillary, this deal was funded by Warburg Pincus, which is one of the largest global VC. And then the Sequoia and Norwest are already the investors in that company. Life after marriage, it's been 1 year. I think 4th of September we'll be completing 1 year of the first anniversary of the transaction. Nothing has changed except I don't have to go to the angel investors to raise money. That gives me 70% of the time. There is a money in the bank, so I don't have to worry about every monthly salaries. So I will just share something about that. So out of these 100 months, so there were 60, 70 months, almost 60 months, where our salary used to be around, say, 60 lakh rupees. And on 5th, we used to make salary on 5th. That was the last date, because that we used to get money from clients between 1, 2, 3. And on the 3rd, we used to have 8 lakhs or 10 lakhs. There's a huge gap between the payables and the salary which we had to pay. What used to happen, out of the 60 times, almost 55 times, we got some money on 5th. So in first 3-4 times, I was under a lot of pressure, tension, what will happen now? Because see, for us, 80% was our cost was employees, salaries, right? As a product company, there was nothing else. Office rent, electricity, telephone, and the rent. Major is this. So I started getting the confidence, and even in Hindi they say, "Jhako rake saiya maar sake na koi." So if there is somebody who was supporting us, he used to stretch it further, and at the last moment he used to leave it. Okay, on 5th we used to get money. So almost 55 times out of the 60 times we got money on 5th where the salaries were paid. So now I don't have to go through that tensions. Thankfully the salary happens on 29th. That's a big change for me as well as all my team. People, we can travel. Earlier we used to, every client visit also we used to really planned 3-4 visits. Now we travel very openly, फटाफट होता है client का. And I think those are some changes. Otherwise, business as usual, the integration has worked well, deal has worked well, both the companies have got benefited out of it. No attrition, we haven't lost a single senior profile even after the acquisition. Generally that happens in most of the deals. In our case, most of the team is with us. Couple of them have left recently, but because of their personal reasons, not for the acquisition reason. Awards and recognitions, I kept this slide blank because I think we got a couple of awards from HISA and all those things, but I don't want to talk about them because we were never in the limelight. Many of, even Hyderabadis don't know us, many media also don't know us. Now few of the people know us, but in the B2B business, non-funded company, no IIT, no IIM, so there was no tick marks were there, so media and all the guys were not interested in us. The biggest award and recognition which I personally feel is that we have brought a change in at least 300 to 400 people's life. So at least my 75 to 90 investors, they have made anything from 2x to 25x. I have brought some change in their life. My 300 to 500 customers who are really made some business out of my platform, they are the real award and recognition for us. And most importantly, my team, who really stayed with me, be a part of my struggle. So we made that at least there are $3-4 millionaires, 30-40 rupee crororepatis we created out of this transaction. So we made sure that all the wealth which we created, 40 to 50% of that was distributed amongst our team. So on 4th September, when I saw those happy faces that this is also a reality of life, this happens in reality, that I think was the biggest award and recognition which I have earned in my 17 years of entrepreneurship. Rest, few lessons, I think dream big. Without that, nothing happens. You have to do that. Rejections is going to happen. You need to really take every rejection in a positive sense, learn out of it and fight. Build trust, hire a class A team, don't compromise on that. And the final is entrepreneurship is a journey which is never going to finish. So already I have completed my first journey. I'm here. Might be people have already started asking me what's next. So might be in 2017 or 18, there will be another startup which might do. So entrepreneurship is never going to end. It is an always going journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. With interest of time, I'll only limit one person to ask a question and I request you to keep it short, please.
Hello. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. It was very, very inspiring for all of us. Just a quick question. What, according to you, is the most important element to make a startup successful? Is it the timing? Is it funding? Is it the promoter? Is it the team? So what, according to you, is the most important element?
Yeah, I think there are multiple things contributes into that. It took me 17 years to build a success. So, and with a lot of ups and downs, more downs and very less ups. I think the fundamental thing which I feel, if I have to give, as I said, I will give that team. I think if you have a sound, solid, committed team, you can build a, then nothing can stop you. Because even if you look at our journey, we never were funded, we never had big money, but we could still pivot multiple times. The team stayed together. If I would have lost Nitin, my co-founder in technology, if I would have lost my co-founder Operation Kasliwal, I would not have been able to survive this. So what helped us, even in the bad and worst period where the electricity bill we're not in a position to pay electricity bill, our PF were pending for 7 months, there was non-bailable warrant would have come. That luckily they didn't come. Even that period, staying together and working together was the biggest asset. So I feel that if you have a good team which has a trust on each other, on capabilities of each other, that is the 50% of the thing is done. Rest, luck is very important. Again, I can tell you, luck is very important, and that has to support. 17 years that didn't support us, last it supported us. So that's.
Thank you. Can I request Mr. Shrikant from Hyderabad Angels to hand over the memento to Mr. Abhay Deshpande as token of appreciation? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was very inspiring and lot to learn from your journey.